Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.
Alrighty, time now is 13 minutes to 8. And at 13 minutes to 8, it's Monday morning. And we say good morning to Dubbo Mayor, Matthew Dickerson. Good morning, sir.
Maybe for the last time, Kerry. Mayoral elections.
I know you've got a little bit of an election coming up this week.
That's right. On Thursday night this week at our ordinary council meeting, the first or one of the first items on the agenda will be the mayoral election. So I'm putting my hand up again, but I've got to rely on the majority of my councillors to also put their hand up for me. So I might be talking to you in 2 weeks' time, or it might be someone different.
Now, also, you told me something, and I'm sorry, but I must share this with people. You told me the only people that you can actually trust in these sort of elections is the guy that says he's not going to vote for you.
That's right. That was taught to me a long time ago by a former councillor colleague, and I was doing some numbers for something, and I said, so-and-so's going to vote. And he said, you can believe those three because they said they're not going to vote for you. The rest of them, maybe.
Yeah, no, and actually it's quite true. All you got to do is think about Bathurst. Okay, so we won't go into that. Now, some students on their way to Japan as we speak.
Finally, after COVID delays or COVID postponements, we've had a sister-city relationship with Minakamo for 34 years. And that's a fantastic relationship we've got with Minakamo, and we do a number of things with them. Our whole Japanese tea house in our Japanese gardens was built in Minakamo, brought over here, or they pulled it apart, brought it over here, and then reconstructed it here. So they've done some wonderful things for us. We've had students go from Minakamo to Dubbo and Dubbo to Minakamo many years, and obviously during COVID that all stopped. And this year we just had some Japanese students over a couple of months ago, and then yesterday I went out to the airport to send off 10 very excited, very keen students who are on their way, along with 2 chaperones, to visit Japan, to visit Minakamo. They'll be there for basically the school holidays, for the 2 weeks essentially, and then they'll be back full of stories and lifelong relationships.
Okay. State government, how did that treat you?
Well, it's interesting, One of the things that I would love to see from state government, I had this conversation with someone before I even got into council, I reckon it was about 25 years ago, and there was a politician, they'd made lots of announcements around spending money on this and money on that, and I actually said to them after the speech, I said, so what are you going to do with that? And he looked at me as if I had 3 heads and said, well, didn't you hear what I said? I'm going to spend 100 million on that and 200 million on that. I said, yeah, that's fine, but what's that actually mean? And I think it's a bit the same with the state budget now that we've got rolled out. It sounds good, 100 million for regional infrastructure projects to unlock housing and 769 million for preschools and schools across the state. That all sounds like lots of big money, but I'd love to see some innovation, Kerry. I'd love to see a government come out and say, we're going to put some research in to how do we work better on fixing our roads. In Queensland, and I hate to say this, Kerry, Queensland, as I normally joke during summer, they're 1 hour and 10 years behind us. But there's a Queensland council that's got all their garbage trucks fitted with cameras that's assessing the roads every week, so then they can send out the repair trucks on a proactive basis and try and get those small potholes fixed before they're large potholes. I'd love to see more innovation and things like that. I'd love to see innovation in housing. I know Tamworth's doing some great work with housing, with some joint deals with Landcom and council and some landowners. I'd like to see ways that the government says, here's what we're going to do with this money we're allocating, rather than just roll out a bunch of big numbers. Probably the most interesting one, Kerry, was the 350 million that was allocated to some regional investment trust fund, but I don't know any details around it. How are decisions made? There's an advisory council. Who's on that advisory council? Who can apply for that? How much can they apply for? Again, it sounded like a nice big number rolled out, but what happens at the back of that? So I'm a bit up and down about the budget. There was a bit of money for regional, but how are you going to use that and how are you going to make a difference?
You're not trying to tell me that the politics are trying to pull the wool over us, eh?
I would never say that, Kerry. That's for you to say that, and I might just agree with you.
Yeah. Okay. Now, listen, I must, on a very serious note, because we had Air Pelican pull out of the Bathurst Airport just recently, and that Air Pelican took over the actual air route from Rex, who incidentally, when they left us, they took their slots in Sydney with them. That should be pointed out as well, so it made it very difficult for another airline to take over. But you've also got a problem with Rex as well.
Well, 8 cities or 8 towns and cities across the state have got a problem now with Rex. And the slots, that's a big issue. Just briefly on the slots, I met with the slot controller, I called him, at Sydney Airport many years ago, trying to work out other slots because Virgin wanted to fly to Dubbo. And what I found fascinating, exactly as you said, that the airlines own the slots. Surely the airport, or surely the destinations should have those slots? So if there were allocated slots for Dubbo and Orange and Bathurst and Albury, if those slots were allocated and then the airlines would compete for those slots, that would make more sense. But exactly as you said, the airlines, oh, well, we're going to go out of Bathurst, we're going to go somewhere else and we'll take our slots with us. They've actually made an announcement, Rex made an announcement on Friday, that they're going to suspend a number of services to 7 different locations in New South Wales and suspend all services to Armidale. And some of these other locations are pretty big, like Coffs Harbour and Albury, for example, were in that list. And I actually reached out to Warwick Lodge, who I know fairly well from my dealings with Rex over the years, and also John Sharp, who's the Deputy Chair, and ended up having a long conversation with John Sharp. And it just comes down to this problem we see, Kerry, skill shortages. They just cannot get enough pilots. They've got about 300 pilots at the moment. They train internally down in Wagga and Ballarat. About 50 pilots a year go through their training program. But as soon as they're trained up, and again, I'm not saying this is fact, I'm quoting from their media release, but they're saying that those pilots are then taken by other airlines. The other airlines are saying, thanks very much for the training, we'll now take those. I don't have all the data to say whether that's right or wrong, but I'm sure it'd be better for Australia if Qantas and Virgin and everyone else that's flying major airlines here in Australia were all doing some of their own pilot training. I don't know really anyone else does it much apart from Rex. And Qantas have got something up in Toowoomba, but I think that's more just a third-party contract rather than them actually running it. So that's the real issue here. As with so many occupations, it's a skill shortage.
Right. Thank you for your time this morning, sir. Really appreciate it.
Hopefully we'll talk to you in a fortnight.
Yeah, well, good luck on Thursday.
Thanks very much.
I'll tell you what, if you get elected, I'll catch up with you on Friday. How about that?
Yeah, sure thing. Give me a call. That'd be good.
See you then.
Thanks, Becky.
Thank you. Take it from there.
Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickinson from Dubbo Regional Council.